And at number 6 for me, and then at number 5, at 6, I got Aaron Jones. And at number 5, I know a lot of Panthers fans might be mad at me, but I'm going to have Christian McCaffrey at number 5. Now, when we're looking at number 6 with Aaron Jones, he's a guy that I think can benefit from what Aaron Rodgers can do and how defenses can spread out, knowing Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers in that Packers pass game is a threat. But Aaron Jones and his skill set, I love what he can do as a back that when you need him, he's there. And the offense that the Packers run with the West Coast kind of run heavy offense, I think he's a good back for that type of offense. And then at number 5 with Christian McCaffrey, he is a guy that like I just don't know if I can put him above 4 with the season he had last year. If you're talking about reliable backs, last year proved he really wasn't one of them. His injury from 2020 had him lower on this list, but you can't ignore the season he had before that. So that's why I'm going to keep him in the top 5. He's the ultimate dual threat running back that you want. Although he didn't have a consistent year last year, didn't have a reliable year last year, he's still a great dual threat running back. And although he's not the pure runner that Derrick Henry is, or Nick Chubb is, or Dalvin Cook is, I think with his speed and his ability to get yards after contact, he's still a running back with the right players around him that can make a large impact on your offense. He's a great dual threat running back, and I think he should return to a bit of the form he had in 2019 and 2021.
Yep. I think I have a lot to say about Christian McCaffrey when I get to him. Christian McCaffrey, I have a lot to say about him. Is actually going to come up with my next two. I got Jonathan Taylor, and then I have Christian McCaffrey here. Christian McCaffrey is a good player, but he's getting overrated. I think people overvalue the production as a receiver and undervalue the lack of consistent elite production as a pure running back. I think that's something that started to happen with Christian McCaffrey because it's become evident. I think he has a lot of areas in which he needs to improve. I don't think he's an every down back in the NFL. And also, I think he has some of that syndrome of best player on a offensively inept team where, yeah, he's getting a ton of production just because somebody has to get production, right? I mean, how many years did we go on thinking Duke Johnson was a much better player than he actually was just because he was the only competent offensive player on the team, right?
Yep.
So these things happen, right? And I go on this, and if you watch AFC North talk, I get flack for it all the time because when guys are putting up numbers, when they're putting up big stats, everybody likes to jump on the bandwagon. But I do believe this to be a factor. I think it's the same way with Allen Robinson, where he's a little overrated because he's on a offensively inept team where he's really the only option to move the ball forward. So he ends up with a ton of production, but I don't necessarily know if that's because he's that good.
Yep.
So yeah, Christian McCaffrey, I like him. He's a good running back. He's a bit overrated at this point. I mean, there are people putting him above Nick Chubb. There are people putting him above other guys I have on this list that I think is ridiculous, and they're just citing versatility. But in my eyes, if you're going to be versatile, you should be able to be judged equally on everything that you can do. And with Christian McCaffrey, yeah, he's a great receiver of the football for a running back. I don't think he's this slot receiver that everybody says he is. I think he's a great receiver for a running back. And, when it comes to running the ball, he's pretty average as a running back. So that doesn't sound like, one of the top three running backs in the NFL to me. It just sounds
Hmm.
like one of the better, more versatile guys in there.
Yeah, I totally agree with this Christian McCaffrey statement. Like, we cannot downplay like how good he is as a versatile player, but like when it comes to as a runner, his impact on offense and what he can do as an every down back, it's it's at this point it's just overrated. Like people like these stats, but when we talk about putting them over Nick Chubb and Dalvin Cook and stuff like that, I just think that's kind of outrageous because he's just like you said, he's just not the runner that these guys are, and but people just love the stats, man.
Well, and it's like when it comes to a running back, they forget the most important thing is your ability to run the football from a run play. Like it's nice if you can
Hmm.
be a receiver, it's really not required, which drives me crazy. We'll talk about the Nick Chubb criticism in a minute, but it
Definitely.
drives me crazy when people lose their mind because somebody can be, a really good wide receiver as a running back, but forget about the whole running the ball from
Yep.
run positions. And it reminds me of this, right? And I'll take you back to my high school sports career. I was a baseball player. I played catcher. Now, if you ever see me play catcher, I could block any baseball that was ever thrown into the dirt, probably because I played for a very terrible high school team. It was one of the worst teams in the state. But I could block any baseball in the world. I did not have the strength yet. I was a very skinny kid to be able to throw down to second base. So yeah, it was cool that I could block every ball, but I couldn't throw down to second base, which is essentially what me blocking every ball that gets everybody excited. Oh, look at the
Yep.
flashy move. Look how he picked that one out the dirt. But if I can't throw the man out, it really don't matter at the end of the day. And that's sometimes what happens with these running backs is that we get so wrapped up in, oh man, he could do all this other stuff
Yep.
outside of being a running back. He's so versatile. Can he play running back?
Yes.
That's the biggest question. Because if you cannot play the running back position, it does not matter what you can do well relative to other running backs because if you can't run the ball, you ain't getting on the field.
Hmm.
So with Christian McCaffrey, I'm not trying to say he's a mediocre running back, but he's
Definitely.
not an elite running back. Like when we talking about Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, like even a Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, he is not even close
Yep.
to these guys as a running back. And it's just funny to me that I see Nick Chubb being criticized for being more of a pure running back when one, he's Kareem Hunt is on the roster. There's a
Yeah.
reason why he doesn't. When Kareem Hunt wasn't on the roster, he did take passing receptions. But two, it's just like if he's the best pure running back, how are you going to knock him when he plays
Yep.
running back?
Yes.
The extra stuff is extra. He is the best pure running back. So that's always been something that just makes absolutely no sense to
Yeah.
me. But yeah, the whole Christian McCaffrey thing really does shine a light on it.
Yeah. Look, these guys play running back, not receiving back. Okay, people? They play running back, not receiving back. That whole rant that Quincy just went on there, learn something. Okay. Now, let's get on to number 4 and number 3. At number 4, I got Alvin Kamara, and at number 3, I got Dalvin Cook. Now, with Alvin Kamara, like you compare Christian McCaffrey like with all these other runners, although Alvin Kamara has not had that like full like 1,000 yard rushing season, he is a good pure runner. He's a scorer, and he's a very elusive back that has a large toolkit really as a running back. But we know what he is as a receiver. Like he's dynamic as a receiver, and his impact on an offense. And we saw it last year with the Saints. His impact on an offense is really just it's incredible what he can do to like carry a receiving core, but also be that reliable weapon for a quarterback that a quarterback really needs. He's probably the most versatile player in the NFL. Like I said, he's a mad scorer. He'll get you those end zone touchdowns. But really, he's an explosive receiver and runner, and he's a guy that's really reliable. And if you need a big play, Alvin Kamara is gonna go get it. Now, at number 3, Dalvin Cook. I kind of went back and forth between him and Nick Chubb. But when I look at it, Nick Chubb is simply just the best pure runner in football. But when I look at Dalvin Cook, you can't downplay what impacts he also has to his offense. Last year, he had over 1,500 yards. He does need to be more of a reliable running back, staying on the field, like actually being there for an offense that really heavily relies on you. But he's very explosive. We all know this. It's very hard to take down. Had 5 yards per carry last year. He's a touchdown threat always, a big play running back, elusive, and he carries that Minnesota Vikings offense. Just always be there on the field when it comes to Dalvin Cook.
Yep. And you want me to get into my 4 and 3?
Yep.
So I'm gonna have Dalvin Cook there at 4. I like Dalvin Cook a lot. I really loved him coming out of Florida State. I think he's lived up to everything that I thought he was going to be. He's an excellent running back. He's very strong. He's also a good receiving back. But then you have Alvin Kamara, who I think is just a little bit better than him in every direction. No disrespect to Dalvin Cook. It's just I think sometimes we forget how good Alvin Kamara is because how much the New Orleans Saints kind of rely on him offensively
Yep.
that we forget just how good this guy is because we kind of take him for granted. But he is amazing. I mean, he is one of the few guys, and this is where I separate running backs, really good running backs like Dalvin Cook, to game changers, like guys that you have to give big money if they're up. You can't treat them like any other running back because these next three guys, Alvin Kamara obviously included, they're guys who can take over games. They're guys who can do that kind of thing. And Alvin Kamara has done that in the past. I think he'll continue to do that, and I think he did it last year at some point. So, yeah, I'm a big Alvin Kamara fan, and I would have him at 3. I believe didn't he get have like a historic day against the Minnesota Vikings? Ironically enough, last year.
Yep, 6 touchdowns. He's the biggest touchdown threat that I've seen in a while. I
Man, he
know
a
I'm
video
only
game.
yeah. All right. At number 2 and then at number 1 for me, I got Nick Chubb, and I've seen some people put Nick Chubb like over Derrick Henry, and I think he has a good argument, especially when we're looking at 2019 and how close the rushing stats were. But when I look at Nick Chubb, obviously he's the most pure running back in the whole league. He's got power, speed, vision, contact balance, and he's elusive. Like, I got so many notes down here about Nick Chubb. Like, he had 1,200. I mean, 1,212 yards, including the postseason. But when we just look at the regular season, knowing how he had 1,067 yards in just under 200 carries and not playing 4 games, it shows you that, like you said, the next 3 guys like Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Alvin Kamara, they're guys that can take over games. And Nick Chubb just shows you year after year that he's a guy that when he's on the field, he's going to give you his most. He's going to have a large impact on what you do as an offense, especially the Browns' offense and what kind of system they want run with Kevin Stefanski. But again, he's the most pure runner in the NFL, and that's how he's able to do this stuff and put up these crazy stats like he's had and impact an offense in the Browns offense so much. Like when you actually look at this and how people try and put all these players like Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook over Nick Chubb, it's like Nick Chubb is like the only guy like behind Derrick Henry in all of these stats that we're looking at. Like he ranks behind Derrick Henry in big plays by running back. He's before Derrick Henry in yards after contact per carry. He's before Derrick Henry in first downs per play. He's just an efficient running back, and if you are really looking for that number 2 running back, a guy that is really close to that guy at number 1, it's Nick Chubb because he's just that good of a pure runner. And like you said, you cannot overrate these receiving backs, and people like to criticize Nick Chubb because he can't receive the ball. But look who Nick Chubb is on a team with. Kareem Hunt. Like Nick Chubb is a receiver of the football. Like we've seen him make these tremendous catches. I know he had 2 drops versus the Chiefs, but like what Nick Chubb can still make happen in the pass game is still electric. We've seen one of the greatest catches of Nick Chubb's career versus the Cincinnati Bengals for a touchdown. But as a runner, man, like he may be a better pure runner than Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's just that good of a he just has that much skill, and he also has that size of the running back position. But Nick Chubb, like as a running back that's only 5'11", he still has all of these traits. He gets almost 7 yards per. I mean, not 7. He gets almost 6 yards per carry. So when I look at Nick Chubb, like I just man, I don't have enough that I could say about it because I could go on and on about how Nick Chubb is so great all day long. But he's at number 2 for me. Obviously at number 1, Derrick Henry. You can't argue with 2,000 yards in my book. Like all of the yards after contact he got, put that all together, it's 1,525 yards. He led the NFL in runs of over 10 yards or 15 yards or more. He's the ultimate effective workhorse in the league. 2,000 yards. I just cannot argue that. Look, all I got to say is 2,000 yards. I could turn my camera off in the conversation because Derrick Henry is just that good. And look, he's a pure running back, but also has that size, which really makes him unstoppable. And he's just throwing grown men all over the field.
Yep, I would agree with you. Nick Chubb at 2 for me. Look, I think Nick Chubb is a cut above a lot of other running backs in the NFL. Just like, I had Kareem Hunt at 10 on this list. But when Nick Chubb came back in the game, You felt the difference. That's how
Yep.
you know he's on a completely different level than most other running backs out there. I think him, Alvin Kamara, and Derrick Henry are the only three that are really different like that in the NFL. Tremendous player. He's not the most fluid like receiver of the football. Like he's not
Yeah.
gonna make crazy catches. He's not gonna be in there running 9 routes or something ridiculous like this. But why would you ask your running back to? Why would you ask not just your running back, but your elite ball carrying running back to do that? That just it
Exactly.
wouldn't make any sense, when you have Kareem Hunt that you can have on the field at the same time. So some of those, the lack of receiving production for Nick Chubb, it's kind of skewed because he's just on a better team, or at least a more fully loaded offense than either Alvin Kamara or especially Christian McCaffrey and even Derrick Henry, to where there are more options.
Yeah.
So one player doesn't have to do it all. And I think that's ultimately going to be the difference when you look at cumulative stats. Derrick Henry, number one, obviously. I mean, the season he had was incredible last year. There's no if, ands, or buts around it. I always thought he was going to be incredible. I thought it was
Yeah, me
crazy
too.
that he slipped into the second round when he did. And that there was, I believe, that was the Todd Gurley year, right? The Todd Gurley and Melvin Gordon year. Was that the
Yep.
same year?
Yeah, I
Um,
think that was the same year.
I was flabbergasted that he was not even in the conversation to go in the first round that year, and people were coming up with all this stuff. Oh, he's not explosive. He's not quick enough. He's too big. He's too tall. Um,
Yep.
just to show you, sometimes people just ain't good at this, right? And hey, that's how you get JOK on your team in the second round, right? Sometimes people they're just not good at this. It just happens, right? Um, and yeah, it's incredible. He has slipped and ended up on the Titans, and it's even more incredible that he's having these seasons that he did. I was a huge Derrick Henry fan, and I am still shocked at what he's doing. So shouts out to him. He is the best running back in football. Nick Chubb, if you want to break this down to a per carry thing or a semantic argument, you can make the argument there. But the cumulative numbers is just so overwhelming. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I don't think Nick's gonna ever be able to make that jump up as long as they're both in the league, because the Titans kind of built their whole thing around Derrick Henry, which is funny, right? Because that's a
Hmm.
team that committed to building around their running back, who, by the way, everybody talks about how Ryan Tannehill is so much better than Baker Mayfield, but the Browns don't do the same thing, right? Obviously,
Exactly.
like everybody talks about how Nick Chubb got all these carries, but then talk about how he didn't get enough carries to compete with Derrick Henry. Well, there's obviously a difference. And I think we found out when they played against each other in Tennessee, because if you want a throwback, you can watch my preview of that game where I was saying, hey, look, Ryan Tannehill and Baker Mayfield are essentially having the same season, except for Baker Mayfield was much better and more efficient at
Yes.
that at that split of the season, and then what bared out to be true at the end of that game. So yeah, they're close, and maybe if you're just blind eye testing and you're just picking somebody for a pickup game, I can see where you can go with Nick Chubb. But if you have to consider the numbers in this argument, then it has to be Derrick Henry one. Sorry, I think my camera went out again.
Guys, this has been a fun time here. Quincy, tell them where they can find you.
YouTube.com/Quincy Carrier. I promise you my camera works consistently over there. I got to put the charger on this camera because I forgot to replace the battery. Sorry about that.
It's all good. Other than that, guys, please give your top 10 running backs down in the comment section below. Other than that, this has been Malik Hicks, aka the Rank of the Ultimate Sports TV, and Quincy Carrier signing off. Peace out. See you on the other side.